Hi everyone, welcome to Effectory. I hope you enjoyed your dinner and drinks and mingling. So yeah, my name is Martijn. I'll be talking about our design system at Effectory. We've been building our design system for about a year now with the help of Hike One. But I'm going to go into some more detail for that later. So what I want to talk to you about is how we balance our design systems diet. I thought the lean design systems were quite interesting, and I thought the analogy with putting on a diet was quite fitting, because we at Effectory, we're a two-person design team, me and Sander here. We have to keep things simple, we have to keep the Scrum teams going, we have to keep our processes going. So yeah, balancing that and developing our design system as we go is essential for us. So as I said, I'm Martijn. I'm a product designer here at Effectory. So does anybody know anything about Effectory? No? Well, let me tell you a little bit about ourselves. As you can see here, we're leading in employee feedback. We're one of Europe's leading employee feedback companies. This means we help companies improve by gathering employee feedback and helping them in getting reports, getting actionable insights, and making them improve themselves by planning new actions and building upon the feedback they receive from their employees. We do this by conducting surveys. We have our own survey platform, but we combine this with our what we call tech and touch approach. This means we have our technical solutions, we have our software, we have our survey platform, but we also have consultants that guide our clients in optimizing their feedback and using it to their full potential. Yeah, so that's Effectory in short. So our design team is Sander, he's over here, and me. So again, we're a two-person design club. But we didn't used to be. Effectory didn't have much design, was it a year ago?
Yes.
Yeah, so beginning of 2018, not a lot of design was done here at Effectory, and the design that was being done wasn't quite effective. So our leaders, they said, well, we want to innovate, we want to improve on our designs and grow as a company, as a design company as well. So they're investing a lot in innovation, in design as well. So I feel privileged to be working here and getting that much support from our leaders, from our company. So yeah, we established some design principles. This is something for the people from Hike One that are here is relatively new. This is something we've set up in the last couple of months, something we want to build upon. I've been working here since December. Sander's been working here for 8 years. Yeah. 8 years, yeah. He's been working as a product owner before. Remind me what other roles you have...
No, I started as a functional designer for 2 years, then product owner for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then decided that design was cooler anyway. And back to design.
As you all know, design is so much cooler. So yeah, working here for 6 months. Hike One helped us develop our design system. This is something that was done using, how do you say it? Well, let me just start by getting to what I want to talk about. That's a good idea. Why would we even bother with a design system? As I said, we're two people. It's difficult to get a grasp of the amount of work that's coming in. Because we're innovating, we're growing as a company, getting more clients, and we also want to keep up with our competition and make sure we're above the rest. We get a lot more design questions, we get a lot more problems that we have to solve. So yeah, that's one of the reasons we decided we needed a design system. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Then I'm going to talk about following the right diet. So what do we do to make sure that we get a design system that works for us? Then I want to talk about our struggles, because we've had some struggles, we're still having some struggles, and also some general struggles that you can have when you implement a design system. And then staying in shape, so staying on track. Once your design system is embedded, make sure that you stay in shape and follow the right track and make sure that your design system keeps up to date. So let me ask you, who here uses a design system at the moment? Okay, so not a lot of people. And the people that use a design system, has that gone fluidly? Has that been easy? Has that been... No. Building a design system is really hard. It takes a lot of effort. But it's worth the effort. And the trick is to not make it as big as you feel that it should be, because I think, who thinks design systems are daunting or scary? Just one? Okay, maybe two. Yeah, they can be scary because design systems in the traditional sense, if you can call it traditional sense, they can be big, they can be bulky. Yeah, a lot of things can be in there. So yeah, this is our setup here at Effectory. We have our design team, and we provide designs and handoffs for 3 development teams. So this can be really difficult because those 3 development teams are in Scrum cycles, and we have to keep up with them. So their train never stops, and we have to keep designing for them. So what we needed is a shared understanding of our mission, our vision, our principles, our goals, and our design rationale. And this is across multiple disciplines. So this is not just development, this is marketing, this is product as well. Even our product managers or project managers in our company as well. We also wanted to eliminate design inconsistencies. So the thing we have a lot of design debt that we need to get rid of. A design system will help us in getting back on track and getting rid of our design inconsistencies. We want to enable designing with a more holistic approach. So this means that when we design in a certain project, we don't lose oversight of the rest of where our other projects are. So it's giving us context into where we're designing in. And last but not least, we want to save time, effort, and money, because the more we have to design, the longer it takes, it's costly. So we want to eliminate that. So design systems. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff that can be in a design system, and this is not even a complete list. But design systems, as you can see, can get pretty bulky, and if you're working with Scrum cycles, handing off to 3 different Scrum teams at the same time, it can be difficult to focus on all of these things and deliver your designs to running projects at the same time. So that's something that we, as a team, don't want. So following the right diet, getting our needs into place, and seeing what we need to get an optimized process going. So this is Sander. He's working in Sketch, looking at our pattern library. Just on a side note, our design system isn't the classic design system. I mean, I think a lot of people think of a design system as a piece of software where a lot of guidelines are coming together, a lot of patterns are coming together, components are coming together in one single piece of software. And this isn't always the case. For us, we have multiple pieces of software where we make our components, make our patterns, and do our documentation. So these pieces of software are Sketch, Zeppelin for our design handoffs, and Frontify for our documentation. So Hike 1, as I said, helped set up this design system. I'm going to show you the design system in a little while, but the best way to set up a design system is by doing that with an actual project. Because I know once you set up once you start designing a design system with an actual project, you know that every piece of your design is going to be used. So you're not building extra artifacts that you may need later. You can focus on the artifacts that you put in your design system that will actually be put into your end product. So this is a good way to make sure that you don't produce any extra bulk or extra work. So this is an example of some components in our project. It's called Start a Survey, and this allows our clients to start their own surveys with a set of their employees at their will. So yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a look at what we are working with. So here's our sketch. I'll zoom out a little so just you can get a grasp of all the components that are in here. So we have our topography here, and here's some modals. So yeah, it's quite a long list of components. And I know there are different ways of using these components or setting up these components. There's atomic design, there's just solid components. Yeah, so different choices to make. We've decided not to go with full atomic design because for us it's extra bulk at the moment, but I'll get back into that later. So yeah, we have some components here that are comprised of well, these are atoms, but we're not at the full atomic design level at this moment. So this particular component is comprised out of several of these other components. Just to give you a grasp of what we're working with. And this ends up going in our screen designs over here. So we mock up our designs with our components. So we have a lot of different mock-ups here. And I know we can streamline this, but this is what works for us now. Maybe in a while we'll decide on a different approach, but for now it works. So getting back to this, here's Zeppelin. This is where we do our design handoffs for our developers. Does anybody here use Zeppelin? Does everybody know what Zeppelin is? Okay, so Zeppelin is a tool where you can upload your sketch files or export your sketch files to, and I'll just get a quick, get a good screenshot here. Okay, so if I choose this one, for example, a developer can access these files as well, and they can get the CSS straight from the designs. So it helps in aligning design with development. And our designers our developers are really happy with this because they don't really need us anymore to pick up any design tasks or any front-end tasks they need design for. So last we have Frontify. So here we have our brand guide, and this is something that we as UX didn't come up with. This is something that came out of marketing. Marketing took a lot of effort in putting our mission, our vision, payoffs, a lot of the stuff that you saw in the overview in the PowerPoints just now, like language. I think there's something here. Yeah, resources here. Yeah, different motion principles even, mock-ups. So there's a lot of documentation here that they provided that we can use as input and guidelines for how we make our digital designs. But adding to that, we also have the documentation in Frontify for our digital products. So this is a little different from our branding portal. So we have specific documentation for, in this case, behaviors of our dashboard, different pages, and how different components within those pages behave, what they mean, what you should take into account when building them, and also components. So here, for example, we have a drop-down. So this is the same component that we have in our pattern library, in our sketch file, but this shows the behavior. So what does it look like when it's selected? What does it, what's the default state? All those sorts of things, we can add them in here. So yeah, it's quite large now, and we've had a lot of input from our did marketing do anything with any of this?
No, this is something I also want to add. This is what Hike One set up, so they're the design agency that helps us before we had the in-house design team. So they needed to do a handoff to our developers regarding behavior of different components, because they would not be there when the developers would start developing. So for that purpose, it was really useful to have this documentation, because the developers would just pick up an item, check the documentation, okay, this is how it should work, great, then we know how much work it is and we can start building it. But now that we are the in-house design team, we have not really maintained this that much, because we're in the same room as the developers, so it's really easy to just tell them, yeah, okay, this is how it should behave. So this will probably die at some point, die off a slow death.
It might, yeah. Because as you can see, this is quite bulky, and this is something that we've run into. I mean, in my first month, this was something that Sander told me. The first components I created, I added to this. I added some documentation, and it just took really long. I mean, in half the time, I could have explained the same thing to at least 3 or 4 developers, and they would be on the same page. So we just figured, well, just conversing with our developers and making sure that communication is up and running is far more important than any documentation or deliverable.
I think I would like to add what was really successful about this, if you are considering doing it yourself, was that it was comprised of pages which use components. And the components, they were set up to use a generic, basically component list that would make it really easy for us to separate the types of components, so a search bar, a drop-down tooltip, and just go through that list. So if you would consider making something like this, dividing it up into components and describing the behavior of the component itself at the component, and the behavior between components on the page itself, is something that worked for us.
Yeah.
I can tell you more about that later when we're done.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. This you can get more information in the Q&A just after the talks. That's so yeah. Getting back to the presentation. So one thing that I've noticed in a lot of different companies that set up design systems or want to set up design systems, especially in medium to large companies, they have this vision of you have all these reasons for creating a beautiful and streamlined design system, which kind of looks like a cute little corgi here, but they end up having something like this, and yeah, that's not something you want to look at every day. Just because they keep adding stuff and some documentation gets stuffed away, or they get a lot of design debt still because they don't have enough manpower to update their entire design system, which is a waste, I think. So yeah, again, communication is something that's really important for us. Communication between us as designers to keep ourselves on the same page, but also communication between developers and between marketing, even our clients. We are doing a lot of client interviews at the moment, and we're also mirroring what we find and what we put into our design system and our pattern libraries with our clients and getting feedback on that, which is really helpful and is really useful for us. So yeah, the struggle. Yeah, we've had some struggle. So just generally, the road to a design system. This isn't something in particular that we struggle with at Effectory, but this is something that I've come across at previous companies that people struggle with when they deal with design systems. So getting buy-in. I think this is one of the most common things that comes back if you search for design systems, if you listen to talks about design systems. Getting buy-in from your stakeholders is something that's generally really difficult. I've not had the problem with this as such, but I've had more problems with this, actually getting people on board. So getting buy-in is one thing, getting people or evangelizing your idea is superb, but getting them to actually join and do something with you, that's a whole different story.
Do you mean developers or?
Any stakeholder that gets into, it could be your manager, because you're going to have to get some time, or you're going to have to put some time and effort into setting up a design system, working on it. It's going to take some amount of time and effort from your own, from your day-to-day work. So it's going to cost them, and you're going to have to get some buy-in. And if they don't want to help you, either in getting you the resources or making sure that the people that should be involved are involved, yeah, that's not getting them on the bandwagon. So yeah, and then aligning with everyone involved. This is something that's also very difficult, and I'm going to go get more into detail with that in here, because once you have it set up, maintaining a design system is really difficult, because you're sharing responsibilities and ownership. So who's responsible for which part of the design system? As you saw, you can get a lot of different components that a design system is comprised of, but who's responsible for what part? For us, it's really clear, because we have our branding portal, and that's something that's for marketing. I mean, we can have influence on it because we're secondary stakeholders, that's fine, but it's their responsibility, and they're the owners. But on the other hand, we're the owners of our design documentation and our pattern library, whereas the developers are the owners of the component library. So yeah, you have to be really clear about that, and that's sometimes difficult. And then sharing a workspace with people with different roles and sometimes different interests. You could have the same goal. Everybody in your company can have the same goal, but you can have different interests. Marketing will have a more commercially centered focus, whereas you as UX designer or a front-end developer will have a more client-focused or user-focused role or interest. So that can be difficult if you work in a design system that's in one singular application. And dealing with the overhead. As I said, you're going to have extra work, so make sure that is limited when you maintain a design system. And last, keeping it lightweight. There we have it. That's another important thing, and that goes hand in hand with dealing with the overhead. So our particular struggles is that we have trouble aligning our design patterns with code components. So our front-end developers and our back-end developers as well, because most of our developers are full stack. We have no grasp of what their components look like. So we don't use any tools like Storybook or Pattern Lab. So we have no idea how the actual code components will look until they show us after they've been implemented. And then keeping our design library clean and keeping a consistent look and feel on each page. This is something that I've briefly put my finger on when we looked at the pattern library. Because we have components that are quite small. They're pretty isolated, so we don't see the entire context of where our components are. So yeah, that can get messy, and you start off with a nice clean desk, but you could end up like this, and I don't think anybody would want that. So how do we stay in shape? Well, for us, the particular struggles that we have, we're working on solutions for it. The thing that we have asked our developers is to maybe implement something like Storybook or maybe implement something like Pattern Lab, so we can get insight into how the components will actually look once they've been coded, and instead of just doing our design reviews that we do now, because the design reviews that we do are isolated in one place or in one particular feature. So we see the components in one place, but they can be in another place where they behave in a different way. So something like Storybook or Pattern Lab will give us more insight into that. And also the what did I want to say? Oh, yeah. So that creating little habits, that helps us to make sure that we keep our design system up to date, keep our components up to date. So every time we work in Sketch and we update components or pages, we upload them directly into Zeppelin. Make sure that we don't wait. Make sure that we don't skip on going through the entire process, because things will get backed up and you will end up with, well, the picture that I showed you earlier. You're going to be in a big mess, and it's going to cost you a lot more time and trouble to fix your debt. Yeah, be precise. This is something that can be really difficult. I think a lot of designers are perfectionists. I think that goes for coders as well. But yeah, you shouldn't expect perfection. This is something that you have to iterate through. You're going to have to learn, and you're going to have to adapt to the situations that you find yourself into. Yeah, and be realistic. Don't overdo it. This is what I said earlier. Don't go for a full-blown design system. I know it might be tempting looking at material design or IBM's carbon design system. They look good, but they're freaking huge. and yeah, be realistic. How many people do you have on your team? How much work can you afford to spend on your design system? Make sure you're realistic with that. And MVP it. Now, I know MVP is a hurtful thing. I know a lot of MVPs have died a long, slow, agonizing, horrible death. But this is your MVP. This is your baby. There's no PMs involved, or there might not be any PMs involved, or POs. So this is your baby, and you're not going to let that die, are you? Please? So yeah, MVP it, iterate, and learn. So step back every now and then and learn from what you've delivered, learn from what worked, and then act upon that, and maybe even scratch stuff that you didn't use. That's fine, but make sure your iterations are short, and yeah, have your radar on. And last but not least, yeah, collaborate and communicate. This is the essence of what we do. Collaborate with your developers, collaborate with other stakeholders that use the design system, and most of all, communicate. As I've said before, communication is far more important than any handoff, any artifact, any deliverable that you can think of. Collaborate and invest in a relationship with everyone involved. I think that's the most important thing. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.